The discovery began not with a bang, but with the quiet snapping of a wax seal that had remained unbroken for 124 years. In the dusty archives of the Charleston Historical Society, a junior archivist named Elias Thorne was cataloging a donation from the estate of the Prestwick family, a box of mundane business ledgers, crop reports, and tax receipts. But at the bottom of the box, wrapped in oilcloth and tied with a faded blue ribbon, was a bundle of 7 letters. They were written on disparate scraps of paper, the back of a grocery list, a torn page from a hymnal, a flattened piece of brown wrapping paper. The handwriting was cramped, urgent, and terrified. Elias opened the first letter, dated March 14th, 1841. He expected a shopping list or a note about household management. Instead, he read a sentence that made the hair on his arms stand up. Elias sat in the silence of the archive, the air conditioner humming softly, and realized he was holding a ghost. These weren't just letters. They were a map to a graveyard that wasn't supposed to exist, and an indictment of a family that South Carolina history books described as pillars of Southern gentility. This is the story of those 7 letters, of the girl who wrote them in the shadows of a candle flame, and of the terrifying secret she was desperate to tell before her voice was silenced forever. Before we open the first letter and step into the nightmare of the Prestwick estate, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Now, let's go back to Charleston, 1841, to a house on the Battery where the walls were thick, the gardens were beautiful, and the silence was deadly. Letter 1, The Garden of Roses, dated March 14th, 1841. The Prestwick house still stands today, a grand Georgian structure facing the harbor, its piazzas catching the sea breeze. In 1841, it was the home of Silas Prestwick, a shipping magnate who had diversified into cotton and rice. He was a man of immense public piety, a deacon in his church, a donor to orphanages, a man who walked with a cane and a severe expression. But the letter Elias Thorne held described a different man entirely. The author of the letters signed herself simply as C, a cipher in a world that refused to give her a name.
My hand shakes as I write this. I stole this paper from the trash pile in the library. If Mrs. catches me, she will have me whipped again, and I cannot take another whipping. My back has not healed from the last one. They buried the 3rd one last night in the garden where the roses grow, because the master says the churchyard is for people with souls, and my babies don't have any. A boy this time. He was born on Tuesday, and he stopped breathing on Friday. Master Silas watched him die. He stood by the cradle and watched like he was watching a clock stop. He didn't call the doctor. He said it was God's will, but I know it wasn't God. It was the milk. I saw him put something in the milk.
Elias read the letter 3 times. The implication was horrific. A slave girl, C, was bearing children fathered by her master, Silas Prestwick, a common enough tragedy in the antebellum South. But the letter suggested something far darker: infanticide, systematic, deliberate murder of these children, disguised as God's will. But who was C? Elias turned to the Prestwick slave inventories. He cross-referenced the date, 1841. He found a list of household property. Among the cooks, maids, and valets, there was a single entry that fit. Cassandra, age 19, seamstress. Value, $800. Cassandra, 19 years old, which meant she had likely been bearing Silas Prestwick's children since she was 16. Letter 2. The Silent Wife, dated April 3rd, 1841. The second letter was written on the back of a bill of sale for 20 barrels of flour. The handwriting was steadier, but the content was more desperate.
Mrs. knows. She has always known. She sits in the parlor with her needlepoint, and she looks at me with eyes like cold stones. Yesterday, when I was hemming her dress, she leaned down and whispered to me. She said, "You are a vessel of sin, Cassandra, and vessels of sin must be emptied." She isn't sad when the babies die. She is relieved. She calls it cleaning the house. I think she helps him. I think she watches the door while he does it. How can a woman be a mother to her own children and a monster to mine? Her son, young Master William, plays in the yard. He is fat and happy. My babies are in the dirt under the roses. I am pregnant again. I felt the quickening yesterday. I haven't told them. I wrapped my stomach tight with linen strips so I don't show. If they find out, this one will die too. I have to save this one. I have to get away.
The letter revealed the complicity of Elizabeth Prestwick, Silas's wife. History often paints the wives of plantation owners as passive victims of their husband's infidelity, or as oblivious bystanders. But Cassandra's letter painted a portrait of active participation. Elizabeth wasn't just tolerating the abuse, she was framing the murder of the resulting children as a moral cleansing. Elias researched Elizabeth Prestwick. Her obituary from 1862 described her as a devoted mother and a paragon of Christian virtue. The disconnect between the public record and Cassandra's private testimony was a chasm filled with blood. Letter 3. The Merchant of Secrets, dated May 12th, 1841. The third letter introduced a new character and a new layer of complexity to the horror. It was written on a page torn from a ledger, the lines cutting through Cassandra's words.
A man came to the house today. A doctor, they called him, but he didn't carry a medical bag. His name is Dr. Aris. He smelled like sulphur and old tobacco. Master Silas took him to the study and they talked for a long time. I listened at the door. They weren't talking about sickness. They were talking about specimens. Dr. Aris said he would pay $50 for the next one if it was fresh. He said he needs them for his research. He said the bones of mixed blood infants are valuable for proving his theories. Master Silas haggled with him. He haggled over the price of my unborn child like he was selling a sack of rice. He agreed to $60. They aren't just killing them anymore. They are selling the bodies. My babies aren't even allowed to rest in the garden. They are going to be cut up by this man.
Elias felt a wave of nausea. He searched for a Dr. Aris in Charleston records. He found a Dr. Julian Aris, a prominent anatomist and early proponent of scientific racism, the pseudoscience used to justify slavery by claiming biological differences between races. Dr. Aris had published papers on cranial measurements and skeletal structures. The implication was terrifying. Silas Prestwick wasn't just disposing of evidence of his infidelity. He was monetizing it. He was selling the bodies of his own children to a ghoul disguised as a scientist. Letter 4. The Plan, dated June 20th, 1841. The fourth letter was short, written on a scrap of newsprint. The tone had shifted from despair to a frantic, calculating determination.
I cannot hide it much longer. The binding hurts and I can feel the baby kicking against the cloth. I have a plan. There is a free man who delivers vegetables to the kitchen. His name is Isaac. He has a wagon with a false bottom where he hides contraband. I spoke to him today when the cook wasn't looking. I gave him the silver locket I stole from Mrs.'s jewelry box, the one she never wears. He bit it to make sure it was real. He said he can take me as far as the swamps near Georgetown. There are maroons there, runaways living in the deep marsh where the white men are afraid to go. I am scared. If they catch me, they will kill me. But if I stay, they will kill the baby and sell him to the doctor. I would rather die in the swamp than let Dr. Aris touch my child.
The letter highlighted the precarious, dangerous networks of resistance that existed within the slave system. Isaac, a free black man, was risking his own freedom and life to help Cassandra. The maroons she mentioned were communities of escaped slaves who lived in the inhospitable swamps of the South, surviving in defiance of the society that claimed to own them. Letter 5, The Betrayal, dated July 4th, 1841. The fifth letter was stained with what looked like dried mud, or perhaps blood. The handwriting was jagged, as if written by a hand that was shaking uncontrollably.
Isaac is dead. They found the locket. Mrs. noticed it was gone and they searched the servants' quarters. They didn't find it on me, but they stopped Isaac at the gate. They found the locket in his pocket. They didn't even call the sheriff. Master Silas and the overseer took Isaac to the barn. I heard him screaming for an hour. Then the screaming stopped. They hung his body from the oak tree by the river road as a warning. They said he was a thief. Master Silas came to my room afterwards. He ripped the binding off my stomach. He saw. He smiled. It was the worst smile I have ever seen. He said, "You tried to steal my property, Cassandra, not the locket, the child. That belongs to me too." He locked me in the attic. There is no window, only a small vent. I can hear the fireworks from the city. They are celebrating Independence Day. The hypocrisy chokes me.
July 4th, 1841. While Charleston celebrated American liberty with fireworks and speeches, a man was lynched for trying to help a pregnant woman escape, and that woman was imprisoned in an attic, awaiting the birth of a child her master intended to sell for dissection. Letter 6, The Birth in Darkness, dated August 15th, 1841. There was a gap of 6 weeks between the fifth and sixth letters. The paper of the sixth letter was different. It was a page torn from a Bible, specifically the book of Exodus. Cassandra had written in the margins, wrapping her words around the verses of Scripture.
The baby came yesterday. I birthed him alone in the dark on the floor. I bit into my blanket so I wouldn't scream. If they heard me, they would come. He is small, but he is strong. He has my nose. He hasn't cried yet. It's like he knows. He knows he has to be quiet to live. I found a loose board in the corner of the attic. Underneath, there is a space between the joists. I put him there, wrapped in my petticoat. I nurse him when I can, but I'm weak. They only bring me water and hardtack once a day. I can hear them downstairs. Dr. Aris is here. I heard his voice in the hall. They are waiting for me to deliver. They don't know he is already here. They don't know I have hidden him in the walls of their own house.
The image is harrowing. A mother hiding her newborn infant beneath the floorboards of her prison, literally beneath the feet of the men waiting to kill him. It speaks to a level of psychological torture that is difficult to comprehend. Cassandra was turning the house itself, the symbol of her oppression, into a sanctuary, however fragile. Letter 7, The Fire, dated August 18th, 1841. The final letter was the shortest. It was written with a piece of charcoal, likely taken from a cold brazier in the attic, on a scrap of wallpaper peeled from the wall. The writing was large, erratic, scrawled in haste.
They are coming up the stairs. I hear the key in the lock. They know. the baby cried, just once, a small sound, but loud enough. I will not let them have him. I will not let Dr. Aris cut him up. I will not let Master Silas sell his bones. I have the candle they left me. The attic is full of old newspapers and dry timber. If my son is to burn, this whole house will burn with him. We will go together, and we will take their secrets to hell, to whoever finds this. I pushed the other letters through the vent to the outside. Maybe the wind will take them. Maybe someone will read them. My name is Cassandra. I was here. I existed. And I was a mother.
Elias lowered the letter. The silence in the archive was deafening. He immediately pulled the historical records for the Prestwick house. He looked for a fire in August 1841. He found it. A report in the Charleston Mercury, dated August 20th, 1841, read, "Tragedy at the Battery. The home of Mr. Silas Prestwick was partially destroyed by fire in the early hours of Wednesday morning. The blaze, believed to have started in the attic, claimed the life of a female slave named Cassandra and her infant child. The official record called it a tragedy of property. It mentioned Cassandra only as a casualty, a unit of lost value. It said nothing of the murder, the selling of bodies, the torture, or the desperate act of defiance that sparked the blaze. But the letters had survived. Cassandra had pushed them through the vent. They must have fallen into the garden, or an alleyway, perhaps found by another servant or a passerby who recognized their danger and hid them away. For 124 years, they had waited. Elias realized that he had a choice. The Prestwick family was still prominent in Charleston. There were streets named after them. A wing of the local hospital bore the Prestwick name. Releasing these letters would cause a scandal that would shake the foundations of the city's historical narrative. But he thought of the line in the last letter, "My name is Cassandra. I was here. I existed." Elias began to type. He transcribed every word. He photographed every scrap of paper. He dug deeper into the aftermath of the fire. The record showed that Silas Prestwick rebuilt the roof, but the house was never quite the same. His business suffered in the following years. Rumors of unlucky heirs surrounded him. Dr. Julian Aris, the anatomist, moved to Philadelphia in 1842. His research on mixed blood specimens largely unfinished. And what of the garden? Elias went to the Prestwick house, which was now a museum. He walked into the garden, manicured and beautiful, filled with tourists taking pictures. He walked to the east wall, where a bed of heritage roses bloomed in deep, blood-red hues. He stood there for a long time, looking at the earth. Beneath the roots of those prize-winning roses lay the bones of 2 girls and a boy, the secret children of a pillar of society, discarded like refuse. And somewhere in the ashes of the attic history, mixed with the charcoal dust of 1841, were the remains of Cassandra and her son, the boy she refused to let them take. Elias published the letters in a scholarly journal the following year. The reaction was explosive. The Prestwick descendants threatened to sue. They claimed the letters were forgeries. They hired experts to debunk the handwriting, the paper, the ink. But the carbon dating confirmed the age of the paper. The handwriting matched other samples of Cassandra's writing found in old household inventories where she had practiced her letters. And most damning of all, a ground-penetrating radar scan of the East Garden revealed 3 small anomalies beneath the rose beds, small, skeletal anomalies consistent with infant burials. The Prestwick family quietly withdrew their threats. The museum eventually installed a plaque in the garden. It didn't mention Silas's piety or his business acumen. It read simply, "In memory of Cassandra and her children, buried here in silence, remembered now in light." The 7 letters of Cassandra exposed a darkness that society had tried to lacquer over with myths of gentility and honor. They showed that the peculiar institution wasn't just an economic system, it was a human meat grinder that devoured families, corrupted souls, and turned fathers into monsters who would sell their own children for spare parts. But they also revealed the indestructible nature of the human spirit. Cassandra had no weapons, no allies, no legal rights. She was locked in an attic with nothing but a candle and a scrap of wallpaper. And yet, she defeated them. She denied them her son. She denied them her silence. She burned down their lie. As you sit here listening to this, ask yourself, how many other gardens are blooming over secrets? How many other attics hold the ashes of stories that were never written down? Cassandra's story survived by a miracle of chance, a vent, a breeze, a stranger who picked up a bundle of scraps and didn't throw them away. But for every Cassandra who speaks to us from the past, there are 1,000 voices that were successfully silenced. We tell this story not just to horrify you, but to witness her, to validate her final wish. She was here. She existed. She was a mother. And now, finally, the world knows her name. If this story moved you, if it made you look at history with different eyes, hit that like button. Share this video so that Cassandra's voice travels further than she could ever have imagined. And subscribe to our channel, because the archives are deep, and we are just beginning to dig. Until next time, remember, history isn't just what is written in books. It's what is hidden in the walls